Hi there, so this is a planting plan that I've done in SketchUp using the shoot extension, and this is the top plan view showing the circles, and I'm now going to move it into another scene where I've got it as a 3D view. So there you can see that the triangles are now revealed, so it's showing the height and spread of each of the plants that I've put in the plan. Then if I move it to another scene and adjust that slightly, this is the view that I want to export out as an image, and then I'm going to render on top of that using Morpholio Trace. So I'll show you how I do that. So from SketchUp, I'm going to File, Export 2D Graphic, and I'm going to share that, well, save it to a folder. I'll call it Trace Demo and export that, and that's exported, and now I'm going to move on to Morpholio Trace. So I've got my iPad set up, and this icon down here is Morpholio Trace, and what I'm going to do is start a new project. So I click the plus button, and if you remember, I saved a image or a JPEG of the planting plan. So I'm going to import, which opens my folder system, and I'm going to find the trace demo, which is here. So that's importing now into Morpholio Trace, and this is what the view looks like. So if you're familiar with Morpholio Trace, then you'll know these menu tabs here. Over on the right hand side is where you've got your layers, and then over on the left hand side are the pens and colours that you can choose from. So as you can see, here is the image that I brought in, just showing the triangles, and over on here, this is the layer that the triangle picture is on. So the layer view allows you to add layers or layers of tracing paper, if you like, over the top of your images. So you can build up layers and have different markings on different layers. So that's our view at the moment. So you can move it, pinch it in and out. I'm going to click on this top layer. Now what I want to do actually is zoom in a little bit more and then start a new layer. So I'll click on this page button with the plus, and it lays over, it almost lays it over like a little graphic. So 3 dots here, I'm going to change the paper opacity so that I can see, and I'm also going to reduce the opacity of the picture. So that's just bringing that down slightly. So now I'm going to do some line work on top of this image. So this is how I start. So I'll use this pen, and I'm going to use black, and then I'm going to choose the pen weight. Then sometimes I'll have a play just to see what the line weight is like, and then I will double finger tap to get rid of it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the tree. So this big triangle here is going to be a rowan tree. So I'm going to do a quick sketch outline of that. And of course, I'm doing it fairly loosely. Just to give you the idea. And then I've roughly done it the same width and height as that triangle. Now I'm going to move on to some of the foreground. Now I'm going to use a slightly thicker brush or pen to do that, because it's in the foreground. That's slightly too much. And then I know that these green triangles are going to be some U balls. So all I'm going to do is draw on top of these triangles like that. And I know that as it curves away, using my artistic skills, such as they are, that they're going to get smaller as they go around that corner. And then I'll just add a little bit of shaping. There we go. Then I'll move to the next layer back. And I know that these purple ones here, these purple triangles, are going to be Salvia caradonna. So they're going to have some sort of foliage. And some back here. So I'm sort of imagining what they'll look like in real life. There's some there. And then, as we know, they have some nice flower spikes. I'm going to give them some flower spikes. Again, sort of tracing over where the triangles are. And that'll do for now. And then these pinker ones are some grasses. So I will reduce my brush again to a sort of finer one and do something like that. Also imagining that they're behind those U balls. Like that. And then because we're in layers now, we're going back, looking at the view through the planting. These triangles here, I know are going to be Pittosporum. So I'm going to use a slightly higher weight brush and draw these in. Also sort of imagining that they're going to be hidden a little bit by the grasses and salvia, but essentially I'm just going to draw them in like that. And then you might notice that these little clusters down here, these are going to be little bulbs. So what I'll do there, I will draw those in a little bit, sort of quite loose, imagining that it's foliage. These are going to be crocuses. So this is just line work at the moment. And then back here, these white ones are going to be hydrangeas. So these essentially are behind the tree. So I will reduce my pen weight again and draw these in. Again, sort of following the height and spread of those triangles. Adding a bit of texture And then these pink ones back here are going to be, they're miscanthus grass, so they're going to be quite tall and feathery. So this is my very, very loose view of those with there we go. And there's going to be one back here, so this is a lot further back, so I'll reduce my weight again and imagine that it's behind, it's hidden by that hydrangea. Okay, and then that's going to be another hydrangea, so I'll fill that in. And that's another pittosporum, so I'll fill that in there. Okay, so that is a rough view of the plan. Now, so what I can do there now, if you go over to the layers again, we will turn off the triangles layer by pressing that eyeball. And you can see that those are my markings, those are my line markings. So yeah, it doesn't look too bad. I might be inclined to just do something with that tree. But otherwise that's not too bad. I haven't got any borders on it at the moment, so I might go back and put those in. If I put my triangles on again, I can see wherever that border goes. Let's make it a bit thicker. And then that will be a fence back there. So I might want to just do that a little bit. And that one as well. It's going to be a fence. Okay. So that's a layer with just line markings, the outlines. Now I'm going to put in some colour. So what I might do is turn off my triangles now, just so I can see a little bit better. So I'm going to put in another layer. Again, pressing that page view with a plus on it, and it wipes another layer on top. I'm going to click on those three buttons, reduce the paper opacity so I can see, and I'm going to draw colour, essentially colour and render in over the top of those. So where Morpholio Trace works is that the very top layer is the one that will draw on, but you can move them around. So what I'll do, I'll just draw straight on top of that top one. So let's do the U. Let's choose a kind of greeny colour. That look like a U colour? Probably. But I'm going to use this pen, which is a kind of brush marker. So a bit like a watercolour marker, brush marker. And this here you can see with the opacity and the size of it. So if I choose that one, give it a try. It's probably too large. There we go. Now I'm going to start rendering quite loosely over the top of these. There we go. And because of the opacity, once I press it again, I can add a bit more shading and highlighting on those. Perhaps pick a lighter colour, and you could choose lots of different colours in the palettes in Morpholio. So what I might do is use perhaps that colour there, and use a bit of this, just to add a bit of highlight, maybe a little bit more limey colour. That's a bit better. Just to add a little bit more interest. And then what you could do is isolate that in its own layer and then do another layer on top. And now I'm going to do the salvias. So let's start with the foliage. Quite loose again. Where were they? There. A few little stalks, and then use a purple, something like that. That's a nice colour, and then just add those. Oh, not there. Flower spikes like that. Then a little bit darker, just to give it a bit of shape. There you go. And then let's do another layer, reduce the opacity, and then I'm going to do the grasses. So let's use a sort of grassy colour. Reduce the size of the brush. And then if I just zoom in there, you can see. Use a bit of there we go. Just the light touch, flick that through there. Okay. And what I might do is just add a few bits of green through there. There we go. So it's coming to life a little bit more. I'll do the pittosporums on another layer. Now they have quite, this will be silver ball, so I'll use that sort of colour, kind of a nice light. There we go. Now I'll show you what I've done here is that layer, this grasses layer, is sort of, I've drawn on top of it, so I'll show you how we can get around that by moving the layers. Yeah, a bit more colour to it. There we go. And let's add a bit of white in, because they're quite variegated. There we go. Now I want to move this layer, the pittosporum layer, underneath or behind the grasses layer. So over here, I'm going to press down and then move it down. And there you go. You can see that if you look at this area, the grasses have now moved in front of the pittosporum layer. If I move that back again, there you go. You can see that it's There you go. Let's do the hydrangea layer. Quite like this colour. Imagining that it's behind. There we go. And then let's use a different brush to give the flowers. There we go. Now what I'll do, I want to move the pen layer on top of the colour render. So I'll find the layer over here, press down on the line layer and move it up to the top. There you go. So now the pen layer is on top of the colour layer. So you might prefer that it move back a bit. So I've moved that down, and now the hydrangea layer, the colour is more on the top, but it's left the line layers more prominently on these layers down here. So, and that's just something that you play with as you play with it and work out how you'd like to represent the drawing. So I could carry on with that, but that's essentially the technique. If I go down to the triangle layer again, I'll turn that on, and you can just about see the layers through there. So really the triangles I use as a guide to be able to see where the planting is going to be, and I find that that's quite a useful technique as a way of bringing to life the triangles, but using them as a guide. So really effective to be able to use the shoot extension in SketchUp to actually plot what you're looking at, then turn it into almost a 3D view and then render on top of it. So this is the finished render that I've done. You can see I'd have added a little bit more detail. So I went from the triangle view, giving just the outline shapes, and then turned it into this render. So I hope that was useful, and good luck with your own rendering, and thanks for watching.